In helping my clients to work with the Viable System model, I started to develop my own guiding frameworks. I used other systems thinking approaches as well as the VSM, and I came up with what I called my blended systems thinking approach. I pulled together a systemic inquiry framework. Then I started to play around even more with the infographics to support the visualisation of the work. Part of what I pulled together was an outline of how to begin with the Viable System model, how to look at the subsystems, the vertical and horizontal communication channels, the homeostats and levels of recursion, how to identify variety imbalances, attenuators and amplifiers, and explore transduction. I looked at the system pathologies and whether they were structural, functional or communication issues. I considered emergence and a plethora of other things that I deemed important in these situations. At the time, I had the work in a bundle of infographics and spreadsheets and guides that I gave people who came on my training courses. More recently, I give my workshop attendees a VSM booklet giving prompts to help them effectively use the model for themselves. In addition to this, I built up a collection of examples and ideas to make the concepts used with the VSM come to life. Many of these are talked about in my book, Crossing the Bridge. For example, one thing I talk about with my clients is getting the balance of autonomy right for people whilst maintaining the cohesion of the organisation. It's easy to think that if you give people lots of autonomy, then all will be well. And I personally don't advocate for just giving people a lot of autonomy very quickly and letting them get on with it, particularly if they haven't been used to working with a lot of autonomy before. What can happen in this scenario is that they become paralysed with indecision and unable to find an appropriate way forward. For example, many people in their work situations have been conditioned to wait for someone else to tell them what to do. It can then be really difficult to instantly change this and step into your own autonomy without any hints and tips around how to do that. What I've found is that working with people to build up their confidence first can be beneficial, and outlining the boundaries of their autonomy can be a really good place to start. How far can they go and what lines can they not cross? I also find it useful to consider how decisions should be made. Who's going to be consulted, if anyone? What kind of things should be taken into consideration before the decision is made? When should a decision be made? Immediately, or can it wait? What I often find in organisations is that people expect others to know how to make decisions, and they rarely consider that others might not know how to make decisions. And this stands for people at a low level in the hierarchy right up to very senior managers, some of whom I have seen immobilised by indecision. The chaos caused by indecision can be irritating at best and crippling at worst. When I worked in NHS commissioning, we adopted and adapted a police risk assessment to help us make decisions about situations of whole system escalation. It was a huge relief to the on-call senior managers that they had something in the heat of the moment to guide them through their decision-making process, especially when the pressure to make a decision was really intense. The pressure plays out in all kinds of scenarios. I saw it emerge some years later when I was working with a team of social workers at a local authority. I was working with them as a business consultant undertaking a service review, and the team I met were burnt out and despondent after years of austerity cuts. Many had been on long-term sick leave and they'd returned to work but were still clearly unwell. The team had recently had a change of management and had gone from a very hierarchically minded controlling micromanager to one who suddenly gave them a lot of autonomy and told the team to just get on with it. But the team hadn't worked with as much autonomy before and suddenly didn't know what to do. They were frozen like rabbits caught in the headlights, dazed, not knowing how to move forwards. As a result, they ended up spinning around and around like a child's spinning top toy, achieving not very much at all. Giving autonomy when people weren't used to it, with no further guidance, did almost as much damage as completely constraining the team. It was immobilising, disorientating, and caused even more stress. As with many things in the working environment, it's about how things are done as much as what is done. How you support people to empower themselves to step into their autonomy is an often overlooked yet important consideration. Giving autonomy without supporting people to understand what it means for them is no more helpful than throwing a small rubber ring to someone splashing around in the middle of the ocean, being circled by hungry sharks. And this is how I started to work effectively with the VSM, bringing the technicalities to life for people, helping to guide them through considering the concepts and ideas in their situations, and then using real-world situations to explain what is happening and what they are observing. And this has to be real time. It needs to be pointed out at the time it's happening. This is what brings things to life for people. This is one of the reasons why I believe mentoring people in the workplace to enable them to embrace their systems thinking is so important. It's a great way to bring the concepts and ideas truly to life.